Prime Minister Narendra Modi has touched down in Jeddah, marking his third visit to Saudi Arabia since taking office. The two-day state visit will emphasise on Delhi's efforts to deepen strategic ties with Riyadh. Upon arrival, Prime Minister Modi received a ceremonial welcome complete with a 21-gun salute. Staying on the topic, an Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Saudi Arabia to deepen bilateral ties between New Delhi and Riyadh. As a special gesture, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's aircraft was escorted by F-15s of the Royal Saudi Air Force as he entered the Saudi airspace. Modi will be holding high-level talks with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Modi and MBS are set to co-chair the second meeting of the India-Saudi Arabia Strategic Partnership Council during the visit. According to the Indian ambassador in Saudi Arabia, a large number of memorandums of understanding are expected to be signed, with key discussions being on strengthening economic ties, bolstering defence cooperation and energy cooperation. Reportedly, an MOU on green hydrogen will be signed, signalling a push towards sustainable energy cooperation. The leaders are also expected to discuss the implementation of the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor and exchange views on pressing global issues, including the Israel-Hamas conflict and the war in Ukraine. Modi will also be interacting with the diaspora. Well, joining us to discuss the importance of this meeting, we have Patakrit Pine, a geopolitical expert who is joining us from New Delhi. Patakrit, thank you ever so much for being here with us. I apologise, we are in fact joined by Uday Pratap Singh, our senior editor with NewsX, who's joining us live from Jeddah. Uday, a quick switch up. Thank you for jumping in. What can you tell us about the arrival of Prime Minister Modi in Jeddah? What was it that you saw?
Well, what a grand welcome for the Indian Prime Minister, no doubt, in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Of course, literally the red carpet rolled out for him. You saw, of course, how as soon as he entered Saudi airspace, there were F-15s which escorted his plane, into Saudi Arabia, into Jeddah airspace, and then, of course, he landed, on Jeddah. The first time actually he's landed in Jeddah. He's been, of course, to Saudi Arabia thrice before, but never actually to Jeddah. That was a very special and significant gesture. You don't see this very often for many world leaders. Then, of course, you saw how, there were a host of dignitaries to welcome him at the airport. He just reached the, the hotel where, of course, I'm at right now. I'll just quickly show you what's happening over here. This is the Ritz-Carlton Jeddah. You can see there the purple carpet, of course, was laid out for him. There were many members of the Indian diaspora who were present here and greeting him. Also, of course, some Saudi businessmen as well. You had, of course, also a cultural performance, two cultural performances actually that were done for Prime Minister Modi. He enjoyed them greatly. He was smiling through it. We saw that, of course, a short while back. There was, of course, a senior minister from the government of Saudi Arabia who was also present there along with him, escorting him inside the hotel. Ae Watan Mere Watan, a very popular, song. Of course, it's a patriotic song. It's also a film song. That was, being sung over here, interestingly, by members of the Arab community as well. So, Ae Watan Mere Watan, in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, with the Indian flag outside. The Jeddah Corniche, the beach side, is just outside this hotel, Josh, and it's great to see the Indian flag flying there along with the Saudi Arabia ones, showing, of course, how close ties have become between the two countries. Now, of course, there is some time for the Prime Minister to meet with some editors, top editors of Arab publications, later today. Also, more extensive sort of meeting with the Indian diaspora will be taking place in the evening as well. And then, of course, that is followed by, the main aspect of his visit, the bilateral summit with Mohammed bin Salman, Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, the second Strategic Council meeting, and also, of course, a state banquet that will be hosted for PM Modi at the palace. Now, tomorrow, sources tell us that Prime Minister Modi is likely to visit a dates factory in Jeddah before then leaving back for Delhi. It is, of course, a very, very crucial visit with trade, energy, defense, security, business, to be infrastructure. All of this, of course, will be discussed during this visit by PM Modi, of course, to Saudi Arabia. Will be discussed in the evening today. IMEC, remember, which of course is the India, Middle East, European Economic Corridor, something that was announced when India was hosting the G20 summit in New Delhi. That is expected to perhaps get some, timelines and more structure through this meeting today. So yes, a lot, of course, on the agenda. And the fact that the meeting is happening in Jeddah means that trade, economy is really going to be the focus.
Yes, Uday, we spoke to you earlier on today, and there was a section and a group of people, Indian people living now in Saudi Arabia. Of course, there is a large Indian population within the country. What will Prime Minister Modi be doing in that regard as well? We expect some meetings potentially to take place.
He always does that, Josh. He considers the Indian diaspora a soft power abroad, which is why no matter how busy Prime Minister Modi is on these foreign visits, he always takes out time to meet and greet the Indian diaspora, wherever he goes, and that's going to happen today as well in Saudi Arabia. There is a meeting of 30 minutes, that's 4 to 4:30 p.m. that has been outlined for meeting and greeting the Indian diaspora, Saudi time. So that means about, 6:30 to 7 Indian time. And that is, of course, going to be a meet and greet with members of the Indian community. We spoke to some of them. They've come from not just Jeddah, but Riyadh, Dammam, many parts of Saudi Arabia. Also, of course, there is a very, very crucial handshake, perhaps, that will happen with some prominent Indian businessmen here as well. Many of them have reached Saudi for this visit as well. You saw how, the PM, of course, met with some of the diaspora earlier. Of course, spending time with them, talking with them. They adulate him. Many of them are from Gujarat as well, his home state. And the fact that he actually takes his time out to speak with them, enthuses them to look at, taking India's image abroad, wherever they are, including, of course, in Saudi Arabia, that really enthuses the diaspora a lot. And today, of course, is also going to provide an opportunity for that.
Yes, absolutely, Uday. Just to finish up our discussion, of course, we've had that announcement from J.D. Vance, who met with Prime Minister Narendra Modi yesterday. How important is this meeting today in Saudi at strengthening those ties with other nations amid geopolitical uncertainty?
Well, yes, we perhaps, there are conflicts, of course, happening in Russia, Ukraine, also Israel and Hamas. So we can perhaps expect, that to be maybe mentioned at some point in the meeting. We'll keep an eye on that. Remember, Saudi Arabia has, of course, been trying to be a bridge to bring about peace in the Middle East. Also, of course, because of these tariff and trade wars, trade discussions and possibly a free trade agreement being signed as well, or at least negotiated between India and Saudi Arabia. That also is something very, very important that we will be keeping a close eye on, Josh. Okay, I'm just going to quickly go because we've got a couple of other important voices that I'm going to quickly go and interview now.
Pratap Singh, thank you ever so much for joining us. We're just going to take you to some visuals that we're seeing online showing you Modi's entrance in Saudi Arabia after onboarding the plane. You can see him here being greeted, of course, by officials, meeting people here in Jeddah as well, holding conversations as Uday was talking about. Indian flags waving, a large Indian community living within Saudi Arabia as we spoke about. And of course, away from these scenes here, there will of course be serious conversations had, serious dialogue had between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and senior officials in Saudi Arabia. We are now going to go to Patakrit Pine, a geopolitical expert who's joining us from New Delhi to discuss in a little bit more detail those meetings. Patakrit, thank you ever so much for being here with us. What is the significance specifically on some of these meetings that will be taking place on energy, on trade, and also on defence?
Thank you, Joshua. Well, first and foremost, India is on the cusp of becoming a $5 trillion economy. So it's one of the biggest consumer of energy in the world. And therefore, for Saudi Arab, it's a very, very big market which cannot be ignored. There is a symbiotic relationship because Saudi Arab itself imports a large number of commodities from India. At the same time, Saudi Arab is a country which is undergoing some structural transformation within the society, and that is very significant so far as future of Middle East is concerned, so far as future of Islam is concerned, because some of the holiest shrines of Islam is in Saudi Arab, and therefore I think in many areas today there is convergence between India and Saudi Arab on issues of governance, on issues of cooperation in trade, on issues of cooperation in science and technology, and on specifically on issues of application of information technology for good governance. Some of these areas India has done remarkably well. At the same time, if you look at Saudi Arab, Saudi Arab is a country which is extremely keen on the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor. The reason being is that if you see in some of these major Middle Eastern countries which have been predominantly dominated by the oil economy, they are trying to diversify. And India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor, Saudi Arab is going to be one of the most critical transit point for that corridor, which will start from India and it will eventually reach Europe. So I think if Saudis are looking for diversification, then invariably investments from India, invariably success of this corridor, invariably creating an alternate supply chain which is resilient, will play a very critical role. And I think the Saudis are extremely keen on that. At the same time, some of the pertinent issues that India is facing, say, for example, the challenges of dollar-denominated sanctions, even though today you have a government which is far more pro-India, the threats of sanctions we have faced for a long time. And I think the Saudis are equally concerned about that. On many occasions, they were threatened by sanctions as well. So while we acknowledge the importance of dollar, I think many countries are also looking for alternate in terms of having global trade in local currencies. And on many occasions, Saudis have also shown an evinced interest in BRICS, though they have not yet joined it. I think the potential possibility of alternate payment mechanisms being discussed, UPI being discussed, is a strong possibility because there's a very, very substantial and a very, prosperous Indian diaspora which stays in Middle East. A significant of that is in Saudi Arab as well. So when it comes to cultural aspect of it, when it comes to religious aspect of it, there are areas of convergence. When it comes to investments, non-oil investments, I think India is a potential partner. And at the same time, the manner in which Prime Minister Modi has galvanized and meandered India in terms of helping the country to metamorphose into a major, at least one of the top, if not the top, exporter of defense commodities. I think the transformation of India in defense arena is remarkable. So I think for Saudi Arab, India can also be one of the prospective countries to look forward to get quality, high quality, cost effective weapon systems. So invariably there are areas. That's why the India-Saudi Arab strategic partnership means a lot. And I think if you see a substantial trade agreement being talked about or discussed, I will not be surprised. Saudi Arab is a very, very critical country so far as Middle Eastern relationship is concerned. You see, there's a war going on between Israel and the Palestinians, especially the Hamas rather, and it has significant impact on Middle East. Now, many of the countries like India and Saudi Arab, they want these wars to end. At the same time, they want to have a world where terrorism does not impact or threaten sovereignty of countries. So there are areas of convergence in those issues. And at the same time, Saudi Arabia is a very critical voice when it comes to OIC, Organization for Islamic Countries. So when it comes to taking forward India's viewpoint, when it comes to taking forward India's concerns, I think Saudi Arabia plays a very important role. And at the same time, I think one of the things which Saudis admire and appreciate about India.
Patakrit Pine, I'm very sorry to cut you off there. Thank you very much for joining us. We do have some breaking news just coming in